For centuries, the galaxy watched humanity with quiet amusement. To the great alien empires, Earth was nothing more than a small blue dot filled with fragile creatures. They saw humans as emotional, divided, and weak, a species that fought among themselves and dreamed too small to matter. The Galactic Council had even labeled Earth as a non-threat zone, a harmless world that posed no risk to anyone. To most alien observers, humans were nothing but a curiosity. But deep beneath that peaceful appearance, humanity was changing. It all began when the first human exploration fleet left the solar system. The Odyssey initiative was a symbol of unity, a fleet of scientists and explorers traveling to meet the wider galaxy. When the fleet arrived in neutral space, they sent messages of peace to every known race. They came with no weapons, only technology and curiosity. For a while, the galaxy welcomed them, trading ideas, learning languages, and watching the humans with cautious smiles. But not everyone liked their arrival. Among the great powers was an ancient empire known as the Zerath Dominion, a race of towering reptilian beings who ruled hundreds of systems. To them, peace was weakness, and curiosity was foolishness. When a small human transport ship accidentally crossed into Zerath space, the Dominion did not ask questions. They saw it as an invasion. Without warning, they destroyed the ship and every human on board. The Galactic Council protested, but the Zerath leader, Lord Karen, laughed in their faces. "You call these creatures intelligent? They bleed too easily. They should never have left their cradle." The Council did nothing. After all, who would start a war for such a small species? When the message reached Earth, everything changed. The entire planet went silent as the footage of the destroyed ship spread across the networks. There were no speeches, no rallies, no grand declarations, just a deep collective silence. A silence that burned hotter than rage. For the first time in history, humanity stood united not against each other, but against a common enemy. From every nation and colony came the same vow: we will remember. The Odyssey initiative was reborn, not as explorers, but as soldiers. Shipyards lit up across the solar system. Civilian vessels were refitted for war. Engineers designed weapons that no alien had ever seen before. Railguns that could pierce capital ships, plasma warheads built from mining explosives, and stealth drives that turned ships invisible to scanners. The Galactic Council sent warnings begging Earth to stop. "You can't fight the Zerath Dominion," they said. "You'll be wiped out." Humanity didn't answer. They were too busy building. Within a single year, the first human warfleet launched into space. They called it the Vanguard, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Small, fast, and unpredictable, the ships didn't follow standard battle logic. They moved like predators, silent, calculating, waiting to strike. The first attack came without warning. A Zerath supply convoy vanished near the Dorian Belt, then another, and another. Entire fleets went missing. No one knew how the humans were doing it. All the galaxy knew was that the harmless species was suddenly making the most feared empire bleed. Lord Karen was furious. He sent hundreds of warships to hunt them down, confident in his strength. But every time his ships entered battle, they faced something the Zerath didn't understand: chaos. Humans fought without patterns, without logic. They used asteroids as traps, disabled engines instead of killing crews, and turned wrecked ships into floating mines. The Dominion's admirals called them insane. But insanity was working. In one of the earliest recorded battles, a single human destroyer named Iron Reach took on 3 Zerath cruisers. It was smaller, slower, and badly armed. But instead of retreating, the human captain rammed his ship straight into the largest cruiser's hangar, detonating the core and taking all 3 enemy ships with him. The explosion could be seen from orbit. To the Zerath, it was madness. To humanity, it was a message. The galaxy had finally noticed. The harmless species was no longer harmless. From the shadows of forgotten colonies, human fleets began to rise. One by one, their enemies started to fear the sound of human engines. The Galactic Council, once indifferent, now watched in stunned silence as humanity's wrath began to unfold. In the depths of his war throne, Lord Karen snarled as he looked at the reports of his lost fleets. "Find them," he ordered. "Erase them from the stars." But for the first time in his life, there was fear in his voice. Because somewhere out there, beyond the dark edges of space, the humans were coming. And they were not coming to talk. The galaxy had called them harmless. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first human attacks against the Zerath Dominion were small, fast, and ruthless. No one believed such a young species could do real damage, but they did. The Dominion's fleets were enormous, but their arrogance made them blind. They followed predictable strategies, never expecting that humans would fight like ghosts. Entire convoys disappeared without leaving debris. Outposts went dark overnight. The galaxy began whispering a new name in fear and awe: the Ghost Fleet. At the center of this uprising was Admiral Marcus Vale, the man who once commanded the peaceful Odyssey initiative. His calm eyes now burned with purpose. He had seen the destroyed transport ship. His brother had been aboard. "They called us Harmless," he told his officers. "Let's remind them what Harmless can do when it's cornered." Under his command, humanity began to wage a war the galaxy had never seen before. Not a war of territory, but of vengeance. The Zerath Dominion struck back hard. They sent fleets of 1,000 ships to crush every trace of human resistance. Their plasma storms turned planets into molten glass. But no matter how many times they struck, the humans always returned, faster, smarter, angrier. They fought with chaos and precision all at once. Human ships would appear from asteroid fields, hit enemy vessels with concentrated railgun bursts, and vanish into hyperspace before the Zerath even knew what had happened. The Galactic Council tried to intervene again, warning both sides that this war could spread across the stars. But neither side listened. Humanity had crossed the point of no return. The more the Zerath burned, the brighter the fire inside the human heart grew. Then came the turning point, the Battle of New Ceres. It was a small mining colony on the edge of neutral space, home to 20,000 civilians. The Zerath planned to destroy it as an example to the rest of the galaxy. Hundreds of Dominion warships arrived, surrounding the planet in silence. Lord Karen himself watched from orbit. "Let the humans see what defiance brings," he said coldly. But what he didn't know was that Admiral Vale had been waiting. The Ghost Fleet had set a trap. Hidden inside the asteroid belt surrounding New Ceres were over 200 human ships, small, fast, and invisible. When the Zerath began charging their main cannons, Vale gave a single order: light them up. What happened next became legend. The asteroid belt itself exploded. Hidden charges and refitted mining lasers turned the entire field into a storm of fire and metal. Zerath ships were ripped apart from every direction. Human destroyers weaved through the chaos, targeting engines and reactors with deadly accuracy. The Dominion's formation broke instantly. It was not a battle, it was an ambush from hell. Lord Karen watched in disbelief as his mighty fleet began to fall apart. The humans had turned their battlefield into a trap, using the environment itself as a weapon. Even when outnumbered 10 to 1, they fought like predators who had studied every weakness of their prey. The sky over New Ceres burned for hours, and when it was over, half the Dominion's fleet was gone. News of the victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in history, a primitive species had defeated a major galactic power in open combat. The impossible had happened. The Council called it luck. The Zerath called it heresy. But every human called it justice. After the battle, Admiral Vale sent a message across the stars, a message that would echo forever. "You thought we would kneel. You thought we would beg, but we are not made to kneel. We are made to rise." That single broadcast reached every corner of known space. On distant worlds ruled by fear, slaves and rebels began to whisper the same phrase: "We are made to rise." Lord Karen, humiliated and furious, swore vengeance. "Enough games," he roared to his generals. "No more mercy. If the humans want war, I will bring them extinction." He began constructing a massive weapon, one that could destroy an entire system with a single blast. He called it the Starbreaker. And while he built it, humanity prepared for the next phase of their fight. Because Admiral Vale knew something the Zerath did not. The humans weren't just fighting for revenge anymore. They were fighting for every free being in the galaxy, and soon the stars themselves would burn in their fury. Months passed after the Battle of New Ceres, but the galaxy never returned to calm. The once proud Zerath Dominion was shaken. Their fleets, once unstoppable, were now afraid to travel through uncharted space. Every asteroid field felt like a trap. Every silence felt like a human ambush. The mighty Dominion had begun to fear the dark. But while the galaxy whispered of human victories, A darker plan was forming in the heart of Zerath space. Deep inside a dying red star, Lord Karen stood on the command bridge of a massive construction ring, the birthplace of his revenge. There, hidden from sensors, engineers worked day and night on the Starbreaker, a weapon capable of erasing an entire star system with one shot. Its core burned with captured suns, chained together by impossible Zerath technology. Once complete, it would bring the humans to their knees. The galaxy trembled when rumors of the Starbreaker spread. Even the Galactic Council, which had remained neutral so far, called an emergency session. Many demanded peace talks. Others warned that if such a weapon were used, entire civilizations could be lost. But the Zerath Dominion ignored them all. Lord Karen's message was clear. Peace is for the weak. Let the humans watch their stars go dark. Back on Earth, Admiral Marcus Vale stood in the strategy chamber, watching the flickering holographic map of the galaxy. Dozens of red marks blinked across the stars. Zerath movements intercepted transmissions and fragments of sensor data. In the center, a single blinking mark glowed bright crimson, the suspected location of the Starbreaker. Vale's face was hard and calm. If that thing fires once, he said quietly, there won't be a second chance. Around him stood his most trusted officers, Captain Elena Ward, a brilliant tactician known for her cold precision, and Chief Engineer Rahul Singh, the man responsible for half of humanity's new war technology. We can't fight it head-on, Ward said. Even if we find it, we don't have the firepower to destroy a weapon built inside a star. Rahul looked up from his console, his voice low but steady. Then we don't destroy it from outside. We destroy it from within. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. To reach the Starbreaker, they would have to go deep into Zerath territory, past patrol fleets, sensor grids, and planetary defense lines. It was suicide. But to do nothing would mean extinction. So the plan began, the most dangerous operation humanity had ever attempted. The mission was named Operation Eclipse. Only a few ships would go, fast and invisible, carrying a weapon built for one purpose, to make a star collapse in on itself. The Ghost Fleet prepared in secret. Their ships were refitted with experimental stealth drives that bent light and heat around their hulls. Crews trained in silence, knowing many would never return, yet not one of them refused. Humanity had been mocked, attacked, and nearly wiped out, but they had come too far to stop now. On the day of departure, Admiral Vale stood before his soldiers. His voice was calm, but every word carried fire. The Zerath think they can break our stars, he said. Let them try. We'll show them that even in the dark, humanity burns brighter than ever. The fleet jumped into hyperspace. For days they traveled through the void, silent and unseen. They passed shattered battlefields, debris fields filled with the remains of both human and Zerath ships. Each ruin told a story of sacrifice. Yet they pressed on. Finally, the fleet reached the edge of the dying red star, the hiding place of the Starbreaker. The sight took their breath away. The massive ring structure glowed like a scar in space, stretching for thousands of kilometers, its black spires pulsing with stolen light. Around it, Zerath warships patrolled like predators, their engines casting a dull red glow across the void. Captain Ward whispered, "So this is what gods build when they lose their souls." Vale stared at it for a long moment. "No," he said quietly. "This is what cowards build when they fear humanity." The infiltration began. Human ships slipped through the patrols, cloaked in shadow. Their mission was simple: plant the implosion charges near the Starbreaker's power core and escape before it went critical. But as they moved closer, the fleet scanners picked up something strange. A transmission echo coming from inside the weapon itself. It was human. Vale froze. "Impossible," he muttered. The signal repeated. A faint distress call carrying the ID code of the Odyssey 2, one of the first ships lost in the early days of the war. "How can that be?" Ward asked. Vale's voice was grim. "It means the Zerath didn't destroy our people. They took them." As the realization sank in, a silent fury filled the bridge. The Starbreaker wasn't just a weapon. It was powered by enslaved humans, their minds linked to its core to stabilize its energy. The Dominion hadn't just built a machine of destruction, they had built it on human suffering. Admiral Vale clenched his fists. "Change of plans," he said coldly. We're not just destroying it. We're freeing them. And with that, the ghost fleet moved toward the heart of the monster. The Starbreaker pulsed like a dying sun, unaware that the very beings it had enslaved were coming home, with vengeance burning brighter than any star. The ghost fleet drifted through the red glow of the dying star like shadows in a storm. Their stealth field shimmered faintly as they neared the massive black structure that hung in space, the Starbreaker. It looked like a wound carved into the universe itself, a giant ring of steel and fire surrounding the unstable star it was built to destroy. Pulses of light rippled across its surface like heartbeat waves. Inside that glow, thousands of human minds were trapped, their neural energy powering the weapon. Admiral Marcus Vale stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vigilant Dawn, eyes fixed on the display before him. The map showed the structure's layout, dozens of layers of defense grids, plasma reactors, and a single core chamber at the center. "That's where they're keeping them," said Captain Elena Ward quietly, pointing to the bright red pulse on the screen. "The energy readings match human neural frequencies. They've wired them into the weapon itself." Vale's jaw tightened. "Then that's where we go." Their plan was madness, but so was everything humanity had done since this war began. Small infiltration teams would slip inside the Starbreaker, using modified drop pods disguised as debris. Once inside, they would find the human captives, plant the implosion charges, and signal the fleet to escape before detonation. If they succeeded, the Starbreaker would collapse in on itself, consuming the Red Star in a chain reaction. If they failed, the Dominion would finish the weapon and wipe out entire systems with a single shot. As the pods launched, silence filled the ship. No one spoke, but every heart carried the same fire. These were not soldiers seeking glory. They were survivors, avengers and protectors of a species that refused to die quietly. Vale's pod pierced through the weapon's outer shell, crashing deep into its metal corridors. Inside, the air was thick and hot, filled with the low hum of plasma conduits and the whisper of trapped energy. The walls pulsed like veins, alive and unnatural. "Welcome to hell," murmured Lieutenant Ramos, checking his scanner. "We're reading human biosigns ahead." Hundreds of them. The team moved silently through the corridors. Around every corner, they found the remains of human technology, helmets, broken tools, and signs of struggle. When they reached the central chamber, the sight froze them in place. Hundreds of humans were suspended in mid-air, trapped inside glowing capsules. Energy tendrils connected their minds to the Starbreaker's core, their eyes dim and lifeless, their bodies kept alive only to serve the machine. Rahul Singh, who had joined the mission to disable the core, whispered in horror, "They're not just using their energy. They're feeding on their consciousness." Vale's voice was cold. "Then let's end it." The team split up. Ward led one group to plant charges around the power conduits, while Vale and Rahul made their way to the control nexus. As they moved, the station began to tremble. The Zarath had detected their presence. Alarm lights bathed the corridors in blood-red glow. From the shadows, metal drones emerged, guardians of the Starbreaker. Their sleek armor shimmered as they unfolded deadly plasma blades. "Contact!" shouted Ward as the fight erupted. The humans fought with desperate precision, using magnetic grenades and pulse rifles to tear through the drones. Sparks and fire lit up the hallways. Every step forward was a battle. At the core chamber, Vale faced the control console, a massive black crystal thrumming with stolen power. Rahul connected his tools and started bypassing the security locks. "If I overload the energy cycle, it'll trigger a collapse," he said. "But we'll have less than 3 minutes to escape." Before Vale could answer, the chamber's doors exploded open. A towering Zarath warlord entered, armor glowing with molten veins. It was General Varrock, Lord Karin's right hand and the butcher of 20 human colonies. His voice rumbled through the chamber. "Oh, should have stayed on your tiny world, little human." Vale raised his rifle and missed the chance to kill a legend. Not likely. The fight was brutal. Varrock's strength was monstrous. His strikes shattered metal and sent shockwaves through the floor, but humans didn't fight fair. Vale and his team used cover, flash charges, and sheer desperation. Finally, Rahul overloaded a plasma conduit, flooding the chamber with white light. The explosion threw Varrock backward, molten armor cracking. Vale grabbed a fallen railgun and fired one perfect shot into the warlord's chest. The blast tore through him, sending the Zerath crashing into the core itself. Energy ripped through his body, and with one final roar he was gone. Rahul's voice broke through the static. "Charges are armed. The core's destabilizing." Vale turned to the suspended humans. "Can we free them?" Rahul shook his head. "If we disconnect them now, the system collapses instantly. They'll die, but if we leave them, the Dominion will keep using them." Vale's face hardened. "No one else suffers for us." He pressed his hand to the console and activated the override. The capsules began to fade, releasing the captive's consciousness into light. For a moment the chamber glowed brighter than the sun, as if every soul was finally free. "Admiral, we need to move," Ward shouted over comms. The humans raced back to their pods as the entire structure began to fall apart. Fire tore through the corridors, alarms screamed and explosions shook the metal shell. The team launched just as the Starbreaker began to collapse in on itself. From orbit, the vigilant Dawn watched as the massive weapon folded into the dying red star. The explosion was silent, but its light spread across the void like dawn breaking over the galaxy. The Starbreaker was gone. Admiral Vale stood on the bridge, staring at the light fading into darkness. He whispered, "They called us Harmless. Let them remember this day." But far away in the throne hall of the Zerath Dominion, Lord Karen watched the explosion on his holoscreen. His claws tightened around his throne. His fury was cold, absolute. "So be it," he said softly. "If the humans want a battlefield, then the stars themselves will burn." The war had only just begun. The destruction of the Starbreaker sent shockwaves across the galaxy, both literal and political. News of the weapon's fall spread faster than light. Worlds that had once mocked humanity now whispered their name in awe. The Galactic Council declared the Starbreaker incident a cosmic miracle. But every race knew the truth. Humanity had done what no one else dared. They had faced the most powerful empire in the galaxy and destroyed its ultimate weapon. But victory came with a cost. Thousands of human soldiers never returned. The Ghost Fleet was battered and scattered. Many ships were lost in the collapsing star's blast wave. Admiral Marcus Vale's flagship, the Vigilant Dawn, barely survived. Its hull was cracked, its crew exhausted, its fuel nearly gone. Yet as long as the engines still burned, they refused to stop. For the Zerath Dominion, the defeat was unbearable. Lord Karen, the iron-fisted ruler who once mocked humanity as insects, now faced open rebellion among his own commanders. His empire's people had seen the light of the Starbreakers fall, and whispers began to spread. If the humans could defy the Dominion, maybe others could too. Karen's fury was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. He ordered total war. No peace, no mercy, no survivors. Entire human colonies burned under the fire of revenge. The skies of Mars turned crimson. The lunar bases were turned to dust. But even in their suffering, humanity refused to surrender. For every world the Zerath destroyed, the humans made them pay tenfold. In the command room of the battered Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Vale stood before a holographic map filled with red warning lights, each one a burning colony. "They're trying to break us," Captain Elena Ward said quietly. "And if we keep defending, we'll lose everything." Vale stared at the map for a long time. Then his expression hardened. "Then we stop defending. We take the war to them." It was madness, but humanity had learned that madness was their greatest weapon. They began preparing for Operation Inferno, a full-scale strike at the heart of the Zerath Dominion. This time there would be no ambush, no stealth. Humanity would show the galaxy how far they had come, and what fury truly meant. The Council begged them to reconsider. Other species sent warnings. Even allies who had once admired them now feared them. "You will start a galactic fire," one ambassador said. Vale's answer was cold. "The fire has already started. We're just deciding who burns." The human fleet launched like a storm of light, engines blazing across the void. Millions of soldiers, thousands of ships, every weapon humanity had ever built, all heading straight for the Dominion's homeworld. For the first time, the galaxy saw the full strength of Earth united. Meanwhile, inside the Zerath throne world of Carrion Prime, Lord Karen prepared his own counter. "Let the humans come," he growled. "Let them bring their fire. I will show them what true darkness is." His scientists unveiled a new weapon, the Eclipse Array, a planetary defense grid capable of bending gravity and crushing anything that approached. Carrion Prime became a fortress world, A star turned into a trap. As humanity advanced, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. Battles erupted in every system. Massive fleets clashed, leaving entire nebulae glowing with wreckage. Human soldiers fought with desperation and rage, using every trick, every piece of knowledge learned through pain. The Zerath, though stronger and more advanced, began to falter. Their discipline cracked under the chaos. Their pride turned into fear. Then came the Battle of the Veil Nebula, the bloodiest fight of the war. Over 2,000 ships from both sides collided in a cloud of ion storms and burning plasma. Visibility was near zero. Sensors failed. The battle turned into pure instinct, a nightmare of light and noise. Admiral Vale's ship led the charge, diving straight into the heart of the storm. "Status," Ward shouted through the chaos. "Shields down to 30%, cried an officer. "We can't hold this line." Vale gritted his teeth. "We don't hold it, we break through it." And they did. Human cruisers surged forward, crashing into Zerath formations like waves of fire. Kamikaze pilots rammed warships, detonating entire reactor cores. Small corvettes slipped through defenses and crippled massive battleships from inside. The Zerath, for all their might, could not match humanity's madness. By the end of the battle, both sides were torn apart. Wreckage floated through the nebula like dying stars. But humanity had done the impossible again. They had broken the Zerath defensive line. The road to Carrion Prime was open. As the battered fleet regrouped, silence filled the bridge of the vigilant dawn. Captain Ward turned to Vale, her voice barely a whisper. "We made it, but we lost half the fleet." Vale's eyes were hard, but there was fire in them still. "Then the half that remains will finish what we started." He turned to his crew. "Set course for Carrion Prime. It ends where it began." Outside, the stars flickered in the distance, their light dimmed by smoke and wreckage. The galaxy watched in silence as humanity prepared for the final march. They had been called Harmless. They had been mocked, enslaved, and burned. Now they were about to turn the home of their enemies into their final battlefield. And when it was over, the stars themselves would remember their fury. The sky above Carrion Prime burned like a dying sun. The once proud capital of the Zerath Dominion was surrounded by a storm of fire and steel. The human fleet had arrived, battered, scarred, but unbroken. Every ship that remained from the Ghost Fleet and the Vanguard now stood united in orbit, their hulls reflecting the red glow of the enemy world below. They had crossed the galaxy to reach this moment. There was no turning back. On the bridge of the vigilant dawn, Admiral Marcus Vale watched the planet spin slowly beneath them. Cities glowed like molten veins, and enormous defensive cannons fired into space, trying to hold back the human storm. Around him, his officers waited for the command they all knew was coming. Vale's voice was calm but heavy. "All ships, this is it. For every world they burned, for every life they took, today we make them remember." The human fleet moved in waves. Fighters streaked ahead like falling stars, weaving through enemy fire. Cruisers formed attack lines, unleashing railgun barrages that tore through Zerath ships. The battle was chaos and beauty. Flashes of light, silence between explosions, and the endless roar of courage. The Dominion's defenses fought with everything they had. The Eclipse Array activated, bending gravity and crushing anything too close. Whole human ships were flattened into glowing dust. But humanity adapted, as they always did. Captain Elena Ward commanded the flanking force. Her ships darted through the debris field, using broken hulks as cover. "Target the array's power relays," she ordered. "Blind it." Her ships fired concentrated plasma torpedoes into the planet's crust. One by one, the massive gravitational spires exploded, sending ripples through the atmosphere. The Eclipse Array flickered, its power faltering. In that moment of weakness, Vale gave the order. "All ships, full assault." The sky lit up with human fury. Every missile, every railgun, every cannon fired at once. The Zerath Armada cracked under the storm. Their disciplined formations shattered. Even their flagship, the Obsidian Crown, faltered under the assault. But deep within that ship, Lord Karen stood tall. His armor gleamed like obsidian glass, his eyes burning with hate, human. His voice thundered across the comms, reaching Vale's bridge. "You think you can end me? I am the Dominion. I am eternal." Vale stared at the transmission and spoke with ice in his voice. "Eternal ends today." He ordered his ship straight toward the Obsidian Crown, Both vessels collided in orbit, metal grinding, flames spilling into the void. Alarms screamed. Crew members braced for impact as the vigilant Dawn tore through the Zerath hull. Vale led a small strike team through the wreckage, fighting deck by deck toward the throne chamber. Plasma bolts flew through the air, explosions echoed in the distance, and everywhere the ship trembled like a dying beast. Finally, they reached the heart of the enemy ship. The throne room was a cathedral of steel, lit by burning orange light. Lord Karen stood waiting, his claws dripping molten metal from his armor. "You came all this way just to die, little human." Vale lifted his plasma rifle. "No, I came to finish what you started." The two warriors clashed. Karen's strikes were like thunder, his strength beyond anything human. But Vale fought with something the Zerath had never understood: defiance. Every swing, every block, every step forward came from a place deeper than hate. It came from the human will to survive. Karen roared and slammed Vale into the ground. "You are weak. You always were." Vale coughed, blood on his lips, but his eyes blazed. "Maybe we were. But we learned. And now, we're stronger than your fear." With one final surge, Vale drew his sidearm and fired point-blank into Karen's chest. The shot pierced through his armor and struck the ship's core behind him. The explosion consumed the chamber in white light. On the surface below, the people of Carrion Prime looked up as their sky turned to fire. The obsidian crown detonated in orbit, creating a shockwave that shattered the Dominion's fleets and ignited the planet's upper atmosphere. The eclipse array collapsed, its energy bursting outward like a dying star. The light of that explosion could be seen from every corner of the galaxy. When the smoke cleared, the Dominion was gone, its armies broken, its emperor dead. Humanity had won, but at a terrible cost. The vigilant Dawn was gone, and Admiral Vale's name became legend. Years later, in the halls of the rebuilt Galactic Council, a statue stood at the center, a man in worn armor, holding a cracked helmet and looking up at the stars. The plaque beneath it read, "He was human, he was harmless," until the galaxy gave him a reason not to be. The story of the war became more than history. It became a warning. The galaxy had called humanity fragile, emotional, and weak, but they had forgotten one truth. The most dangerous thing in the universe isn't strength. It's a species that refuses to die. And though the stars were quiet once more, their silence carried a message that echoed through every world. Never underestimate Earth. Never again.